Disciple, you're watching my channel, and I just want to wish you guys, first of all, a good night if it's night by you, a blessed day if it's day by you. Okay, you see the topic, you see what we'll be talking about. All right, so we're going to be talking about what is in the dark will come to light. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. What's in the dark will come to light. All right, so I'm going to start off with a piece of scripture, and then we're going to get into it, okay? So, the piece of scripture that we're talking about today is coming from Luke chapter 12, verse 2 and 3. It says this: "The time is coming when everything will be revealed. All that is secret will be made public. Whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light. What you have whispered behind closed doors will be shouted from the housetops for all to hear." Yeah, I don't even have to say much more, because what we're about to talk about goes into that. Hashtag restore the Snyderverse, ladies and gentlemen. We still push on. I am Christ, I am Disciple. If you don't know, this is my channel. If you're coming to my channel, you can check in the description if you want to and donate to my channel via PayPal. So, as you can see from the topic, and you can see from the profile picture, we're about to talk about something that just broke. That Rotten Tomatoes have been having people do fake reviews on that site. There are people who've not been honest on that site. I'm going to go into the article, because what's in the dark will come to light. That is the topic right now. What's in the dark will come to light. And we're going to go through that article. I saw it. I was alerted by Culture Crave on Twitter, right? So Culture Crave put this up here with about Rotten Tomatoes. And that a PR firm, it's confirmed that a PR firm has been manipulating Rotten Tomatoes movie scores for over 5 years by paying critics directly. All right, the article is here. Paul Schrader says the system is broken, audiences are dumber. Normal people don't go through reviews like they used to. Rotten Tomatoes is something studios can game, so they do. All right, and that was from the Vulture article, which we'll go through in a little bit here right now. Let me see if I can get the article up. All right, so this is the article from Vulture, and it says the decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes, the most overrated metric in movies, is erratic, reductive, and easily hacked, and yet has Hollywood in its grip. And I just want to say, first and foremost, you know, Warner Brothers Pictures. Forget Warner Brothers Pictures. Warner Brothers Discovery. You have been played so easily because you wanted these great critical scores, because you thought critics are everything. And that's a whole other topic for another day, because I can go into detail about why critical scores do not matter in the scheme of things. But far less a critics aggregate, like something like Rotten Tomatoes. This article, by the way, is done by Lane Brown, and Luke Winkie reported on this article. So Rotten Tomatoes has been getting, Warner Brothers Pictures has been getting good reviews for their movies of late, but their movies are all flopping. What Warner Brothers doesn't realize is these reviews are not sincere reviews. They're not honest reviews. They're reviews of paid-to-play people. These people have been paid to play. So Warner Brothers has been purchasing paid-to-play reviews. And I have a feeling, again, that this gentleman is behind that, Geoff Johns. Like I said before, Geoff Johns has done more harm to DC than he has done good. And we'll talk about this article in a minute, but I just wanted to get into a couple things first. And it's all come to light, don't worry. That's the beautiful thing about life. We press on with Restore the Snyderverse, irrespective of what Warner Brothers does. Just like how we pressed on with Release the Snyder Cut, we need to press on with Restore the Snyderverse. Never for a minute flinch. We're going to this to the bitter end. If I have to die and be saying that, no problem. You have to understand, people, that the amount of lies that have accumulated, and I just wanted to say, and this article is proof, literally proof. This article goes into a company called Bunker 15, which actually influenced the change in the Rotten Tomato scores for a movie called Hamlet, Ophelia, a feminist retelling of Hamlet, starring Daisy Ridley. And they got that movie to actually be picked up by a production company, a film company, and it's now being worked into theaters for release into theaters. And all of this happened because they were able to influence critics. But it goes even further to show that if this small company was doing this, Bunker 15, bigger companies have been doing this. And in fact, I just did the quote from Culture Crave, but I'm going to come back here and do another quote here. Okay. Here's the quote right here. There's a lot. You can read the whole article if you want on Google. But I'm going to come to a specific quote here. Okay. So here it is. Of course, they delisted Bunker 15 and all of that. Listen to this. If there was a new film by, I don't know, Klaus von Borenstein, says Schrader, and he had a 3-hour drama about a housewife in the Middle Ages, do you think people would go see it because it had a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes? No. But if it were a movie about a serial killer in the wilds of Alaska and it had a 50%, they might check that out. Maybe they have better luck if they read the reviews. They went on to say, Rotten Tomato scores have never really played a big role in driving box office performance, even though they have, either positively or negatively. That's what the guy is saying, but that's not true. Why did I say that? Because we know about BVS and what happened. When the critics panned BVS, in its second week it had a drop-off, and that was because of the critical reviews and people depending on Rotten Tomatoes to determine what was a good movie for them to see. And it's just an aggregate. It's not even the actual reviews. Nobody's taking time to even read the reviews anymore. They read the synopsis of reviews. And I remember very distinctly how critics panned that movie, but they were paid to play. They were paid to play. All right? And as the synopsis of the, one of the synopsises of the article said, as Paul Schrader said, the system is broken. Audiences are dumber. Normal people don't go through reviews like they used to. Once upon a time, you had reviewers that you'd go to and you read their whole review on a movie. People don't have time for that, and people go to aggregates now and they watch the Rotten Tomato scores, and that's what determines whether they go see a movie or not. Or they go see the movie, but in their minds, it's like, oh, okay, the critics didn't like this, right? But that's not the purpose. That's not how a reviewing is supposed to go. Reviewing is supposed to go. A critic will come, critically examine the story of a movie, and then he'll break down, what he thinks, who he thinks might want to go to see the movie. It's very elaborate. He may say, this is not a good story, or it's not coherent because of X, Y, and Z factors. They literally break down why a story is good, the movie is good or bad based on the story, and where it may have plot holes, where it may not be consistent, where it can attract certain people. That is an in-depth review, and that's a proper review. We don't have that anymore in the world today. In fact, some of the critics that are doing their criticisms and reviews of movies, they're not even critics. And this article kind of goes into detail about that. But suffice it to say, what happened to BVS, I will never forget it. It was orchestrated, it was coordinated, even before the movie even came out. There was this vicious attack on the movie, on the director of the movie, as if BVS was the greatest threat out there. And unfortunately for the team of people who were working on that movie, they had the studio, certain executives in the studio were against them. And then, of course, Geoff Johns was egging on everything because he was so mad that he was not a part of the process. And so, ultimately, Geoff Johns was pushing a narrative behind the scenes, making people like Kevin Smith and so on speak about how superheroes are supposed to be bright and sunny, and they're supposed to be hopeful and supposed to show hope. And Geoff Johns was weaving his stuff, and now he's weaved his way into the fabric of Warner Brothers, and he is still a CEO in Warner Brothers. He has never been fired, even though they say James Gunn and Peter Safran are the CEOs. Geoff Johns is very much involved. He's very much involved in the storytelling and the story writing of these movies, and that is why these movies are flopping so hard. Okay, there's just solo Geoff Johns really doing most of the stuff, and then James Gunn is doing his thing as well. So what I want to say is that now we got evidence that the system is corrupt, and it's been corrupt. We got evidence that reviewers have been paid to say what they say. And here's some of the terrible things they said about BVS, just to recap, just to remind you guys as this truth comes out. Because I'm not going to take very long on this. But I want to remind you what they said and how superficial it was. Robert Wielowski, in the words of the Joker in a far better Batman movie, why so serious? This is his major critique, that BVS was too serious. Bill Gibron, film Racket. Snyder and company wouldn't understand the possible joy within the genre if it jumped up and bit them in their ambitions. Joy. If that's a critique of a story, that it doesn't have joy in it, that is the most flimsy critique I've ever heard. Paid to play. Ryan Gilbey. It is the job of the modern superhero movie to explore at extravagant length and in morose detail the burden rather than the bliss of being one of the saviors of mankind, self-appointed or otherwise. So he's saying it is the job of the modern superhero movie to explore that. And in morose detail, the burden rather than the bliss. Again, there's no joy in the movie. This has nothing to do with how you judge a movie. You judge a movie based on its story. And if you don't even tell me anything about the story, and you're starting with mood, and you're starting with tone, and you don't know, you're telling me I don't know what I watch, or you're not that inept, you're paid to play. Because they all said the same thing. When it was decided superhero movies shouldn't be any fun, boom. Let's keep it going. It's hard to imagine a big budget film worse than the Avengers Age of Ultron or even Gods of Egypt. There, it has been said. But Batman v Superman has the dubious distinction of showing utter contempt for its audience and wearing that contempt on its sleeve. What is that supposed to mean? Again, this review says absolutely nothing about the story. It just goes into feelings and emotions. And when you see critics doing that, when you see critics speaking like that, know they're paid to play. Paid to play. Okay? And now it's being exposed that this is what they've been doing. This is called industrial espionage. And if Congress wants to investigate something, they should have investigated this, as well as they should have investigated the merger between Discovery and Warner Brothers and held Toby Emmerich and Casey Bloys, because these are the people, the content creators, the people for HBO Max, and that they should have held them accountable, because what they did was they lied about the numbers of subscribers, and they lied about the numbers and ratings on HBO Max. And why this is important to understand is because those people need to be held accountable, not the company. Those people need to be held accountable. I'm not going to blame David Zaslav for inaccurate figures from the former regime, of which Jeff Johns was a part of again. Okay. Rayford Guzman says, overlong, underdeveloped, and almost entirely humorless. Now he's saying that it was too long. That is probably based on his mood. Underdeveloped. Now he should elaborate on that. What does he mean by underdeveloped? What is underdeveloped? Okay, that's an actual critique that we could probably take seriously if you back it up. And almost entirely humorless, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Okay, you don't expect a horror movie that is serious tone and set in a serious tone to be humorous, right? You don't expect, where has Christopher Nolan ever done a humorous film? Which of his films are humorous? The Joker movie. Yeah, there was some humor in it that I enjoyed. But where was the tone that said it was humorful? The consistency is not there. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice may please diehard fans by pitting two DC icons against each other. Everyone else may want to wait for the next Marvel movie. Well, he just basically said who he's paid by. Rich Heldenfeld says, I really wanted this to work both in its own and as the real launch for a series of DC Comics-based movies akin to Marvel's Cinematic Universe. Again, he just mentioned Marvel. That tells you where his mind is. But yes, I was disappointed. This film is an artistic failure on almost every level. Artistic failure on almost every level. This is ridiculous. This comment is ridiculous. And now it makes sense why these comments are so ridiculous. They were paid to play. And I don't need to go into any more, right? I have several, but I was analyzing them, and now it makes sense. These people are paid in the industry. I knew this industry. That's why you see the critics. It's still to this day, BVS, the audience has the thing as fresh, and the critics have it as a tremendous flop. And the dichotomy, in spite of other fans going in there and trying to sabotage everything and so on, the dichotomy between the two makes you wonder, why is this film still fresh after all these years? And the truth be told is these people were paid to say what they were saying. And this article goes into detail about it, and it's a very long article. I don't want to go into all of it, but you can go read it. It's the name of the article is, and it goes into several different points. It's by Vulture, so you can go look it up online. And the name of the article is The Decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes, the most overrated metric in movies. It is erratic, reductive, and easily hacked, and yet has Hollywood in its grip. And definitely does. They all want fresh Rotten Tomato scores when that matters very little in the scheme of things. If people like a movie, they like a movie. It doesn't matter what critics' metrics are. It doesn't matter what the critic says. If you like a movie, you like a movie, and that's all that matters. If it appeals to you, speaks to you in some way, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what my opinion is. It doesn't matter. And if the majority of people like the movie, they like the movie. You don't need to have any logic to liking movies. Like I said earlier on today, you like what you like. You can't force people to like what you like, but you can like what you like. Now, Warner Brothers is trying to be forcing people to like a certain kind of movie, which people just don't like. The reason why your movies are flopping is because people are not interested and people don't like those movies. The audience that comes to see DC is not interested and will not engage with you unless it's something interesting that they want. And I'm going to tell you right now, James Gunn has nothing to offer. You gave him a shot. He had unlimited access to the Suicide Squad. He did his most James Gunn-y thing, and people didn't like it. Certain people who are fans of James Gunn, they liked it, but it wasn't enough to make his movie make profit. People just don't care about his stuff like that. Maybe on TV, because you don't have the metrics for TV, so you can manufacture your own metrics for HBO Max and so on. You can say that he was a success there. Nobody can really verify it. But with box office, you can verify it. Box office is right there. You can't forge numbers. You can't fake numbers for box office. Right? So, and there's always independent bodies that are actually monitoring the box office as well. So that's why, you can BS people for a minute, but you can't BS them forever. You said it was COVID. You said this. Well, the movies aren't performing, period. So those excuses don't hold water anymore. And yes, you're getting good critical ratings, but those are paid to play people who believe fun, funny movies and joy make movies. And then they are so disconnected from reality, and they know better. When Zack Snyder's Justice League came out on HBO Max, the stock of Warner Brothers Discovery went up 5 times the value of what it normally is. Sorry, let me rephrase. 3 times the value of what it normally is. Usually their stock is somewhere around $20 to $30 a share. It went up past $75 a share. That's how high Warner Bros. Highest stock they've ever had in the history of their existence. And then Asarna came out and said, no, that's a one-time event. It's a cul-de-sac, and killed everything. And since then, Warner Bros. Stock has just been plummeting. It's now somewhere around $11, $12 a share. It's the second, I think it's the second lowest stock of all stock out there. The only thing that's lower in stock is Lionsgate. And the trajectory Warner Bros. Has had this year it's just been dropping and dropping and dropping. And the reason is because their major tent pools, which were supposed to rake in significant money in their DC line, which is now headed by James Gunn and Peter Safran officially, but Jeff Johns is there, is going down, and it's just diving. Okay, the DC brand is pretty much dead. You maybe it's possible that the Batman 2 may do something and Joker sequel may do something, but to be honest with you, the brand is seriously hurt right now. Okay, every single movie is flopping, and it's not going to change anytime soon. And James Gunn doesn't have the tools. He does not have the storytelling ability to get people interested in DC who usually go see DC. So where DC is, like I said before, is it is in a rut. And will it recover? I don't know. It depends on what Abdi and DeLuca decide to do in the future. But what we do know is the truth is coming to light. Now, here's what's happening, though. That truth coming to light builds a case for several different things. Warner Brothers based BVS's critical reception on a reason to pivot their universe. Because profit-wise, BVS was very profitable for the second movie in the DCEU. And profit just kept on going up and up and up. And they tampered with David Ayer's cut. So David Ayer, the Ayer cut, released the Ayer cut. We're never going to stop saying that. We're going to keep on pushing for the Ayer cut to come into cinemas. Hopefully next year, 2024, if the strike ends. If the strike doesn't end, whenever the strike ends, for David Ayer's Suicide Squad to go into theaters, because it's almost done. Now, I want to say a couple of things. This studio, Warner Brothers Discovery, I'm not going to talk about Warner Brothers Pictures. They're doing pretty well. Other than outside of DC, they're doing okay. But Warner Brothers Discovery, headed by David Zaslav, I have to say, that company doesn't get it. They don't understand something. They do not understand that what the executives said about the Snyder Cut coming out, being regretting it, was the dumbest thing they could ever say. If you do recall, the Snyder Cut was not responsible for the flops that started to happen. People were asking for the Snyder Cut, but DC was flopping. DC was flopping in 2020. The two movies, both Wonder Woman 84 and Birds of Prey, which came out before the announcement that the Snyder Cut was to come out, they both flopped. So it wasn't a question of whether the Snyder Cut coming there would... HBO Max was launched off the backs of the Snyder Cut, obviously. And the Snyder Cut was put out into then called HBO Max, now called Max, which it should have been called to begin with. Certain people were fired because they got the Snyder Cut into existence and got people to approve of the Snyder Cut so it could come out. And other people were fired for being structured ethically. And the people that were there, and I still say Casey Bloys needs to get fired. He's the content creator for HBO Max. I keep on saying that the Snyder Cut came into existence as a result of certain people who got fired from the company. And in it coming to existence, it was obviously, Warner Brothers Discovery stock was all-time high. The hype for it was all-time high. They refused to put it into theaters. The former regime, which is Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, these were supposedly, and Jeff Johns, these were supposedly the head of DC at the time. Jeff Johns is still one of the people there. These people decided it was not going into theaters. Even though, when we look at how it performed in China, it blew away all kinds of records in China through streaming. And in other countries, it blew away records in every other country except for the United States of America. That's the only place it didn't blow away records, according to, and specifically, of course, HBO Max. And what's so funny about that, and what's so weird about that, is that, and that's why we don't believe the numbers, is that not even though the movie did become a hit, the weird about that is it never released any real significant numbers. They never did. And whatever they released, and I do believe they made a killing off of that movie. But let's go back to the facts, because Zack Snyder doesn't make movies that don't make money. The other thing that needs to be understood, and this is how we know they lied. Zack Snyder Justice League never saw theaters. It saw screenings, the black and white, raising for suicide prevention and awareness. Recently, this year, has been put into full circle for, again, awareness. But it still hasn't seen theaters. And why I am so adamant that it should see theaters this November is because, and it takes some guts to get this done, because Abdi and DeLuca will have to go against Jeff Johns and will have to go against James Gunn. They're going to have to do it. They're going to have to convince Mr. David Zaslav this is the way to go. I see that Warner Brothers Pictures have been putting out a lot of stuff on the movies that seem to have performed for them in the box office. And that's what you really have to do. So they've gone back to The Dark Knight. They've gone back to the Snyderverse trilogy. The Dark Knight will be coming out, trilogy will be coming out September 16th, Batman Day. So they'll have that movie out in theaters and you can get tickets for it. And depending on how people respond to that, it should be interesting. The other thing is, we want to see what happens with the Snyderverse trilogy. I want to see if people will buy out the, and in the month of October 3rd, they're putting out the Blu-ray 4K, and then they will put out the Steelbook. And if people gobble that up again, it only shows that there's an insatiable appetite for this thing. Now, regardless of whether we gobble it up or we don't gobble it up, that's besides the point. The point is This is an opportunity for the movie to be released. It's not even re-released, released into cinemas, into IMAX. And it will take a certain resolve and it will take a certain leadership to convince Mr. David Zaslav that that should happen. Because if you don't want the DC universe to be destroyed completely, which is I believe James Gunn is coming. He came really to destroy DC. He has said nothing that tells me he loves DC. Neither in his past nor in his present. And all he has been doing since he's been making movies is destroying the brand. The brand has not suffered this kind of destruction. I mean, this is very destructive what is happening. Right? Any DC fan who calls themselves a real DC fan, and we're going to go into the buts. There's a bunch of people with burner accounts on Twitter. They've joined June, July, and August this year. And they've been responding to tweets and stuff. But you go and research, they don't have much followers. And they just joined recently. Or they joined when James Gunn became leadership and then they came in. And there's these burner accounts, and definitely burner accounts because they have these ridiculous names. And we're realizing it could be one person having multiple accounts and they're going around responding to everybody. This is what I think is happening. And so they're not real fans of DC. They're probably Marvel fans that came across. And what's weird about this is these people are not clued into what DC is. They're not even clued into the culture of DC. And they just say these vast, really ridiculous statements. Some other people, they actually could tell they've been in DC and they're wearing a burner account maybe because a former account got suspended or something and they're trying to multiply themselves. But what is weird about it is they're trying to make this narrative that DC fans are divided. So these burner accounts are really there to just attack your account or attack anybody else's account out there who doesn't go along with a certain narrative. So this is what they're doing now to make themselves look like they're more than they really are. And so this deception again is something that is sad because what it's saying is you don't have the numbers to make anything successful at the box office. You don't have the numbers. Whether you're an executive or whether you are just a James Gunn fan who's decided he's going to try and push the thing in the direction to help James Gunn, or you're just a hater. You don't like Zack Snyder's stuff and you're joining up with these people. You're amalgamating to try and push something forward. It's not working because what's happening is it's not showing in the box office. And we know these people desperately want these movies to do well, but they're not doing well. And Aquaman's not going to do well either, sadly. And the sad thing about it is, it's not because James Wan's not a good director. It's not because Jason Momoa is not a great Aquaman. It's going to do poorly because people are tired and fed up of the lies. There's no trust. And when you have no trust to a company, you expect it to do the most sadistic thing. Now, particularly, I've been sending a lot of information to Mr. Mike DeLuca and Mrs. Pamela Abdi because I believe those are the two people who are level-headed and actually can do something. Because they've shown under Warner Brother Pictures, this year they've gotten 5 or 6 hits. And I just think they have the winning formula for whatever they do. They're really a good team. They're a very experienced team and they do very, very well. And I just think that speaking to them and speaking to them continuously is going to get us the results we need to get because they're rational-minded people. So whatever decisions they come to will be rational. But it will take a little bit of rolling up your sleeves, toughening up to get David Zaslav to agree to Zack Snyder Justice League going into cinemas. This is not something that James Gunn will want. This is not something that Jeff Johns will want because they come from the former regime with Tommy Emmerich and Walter Hamada, who did not want that movie to see cinemas. So this is not something they have to literally go against those guys. And they have to go against them hard. And they have to persuade the other executives this is the way to go. The reason is very simple. Nothing else has made noise in DC for uh, the last 4 years. The last 4 years. Everything else in DC, even Black Adam was like, nobody cared about Black Adam like that. People care about where you just abruptly cut off with not only Zack Snyder Justice League, but because people were pushing for the Snyder Cut. The majority of DC fans care about the Snyderverse. Period. And if they're not going to have the Snyderverse, then they need to at least have something that is serious and dealt with topics in a mature adult way. And the only thing they had was the Batman and Joker movie, and those are two Batman movies. And nobody, I mean, they're all well and good and they're cool, but nobody really chomping at the bit to see Joker 2. Nobody want to see that really. It was supposed to be just a one movie thing. And the Batman sequel, first the Batman was an alright movie. It was an alright movie. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything game changer. We ain't that thirsty. So nobody's really looking. I'm not interested in a sequel to that movie. I'm being honest with you. I've seen bits and pieces of the Batman movie. I didn't watch the entire thing. And I'm just not impressed. I'm just not impressed with it. It's cool and everything, but I'm not impressed with it. So Joker 2, which was not supposed to, that movie was never supposed to have a sequel. I don't know what's going to happen. People might love it. I'm not hyped on it. Okay? I'm not. I was, but I've lost interest because of how DC's going and just how the management is going of DC. You could get my excitement probably up for those movies if the Snyderverse is restored, but I'm not really interested. It's not to say I'm only hooked on the Snyderverse. I'm just looking for an alternative. What's the alternative there? And there is no alternative. They don't have any ideas. They're clueless as to what they're doing when it comes to DC and DC Comics. And the guy who's leading them, Jeff Johns, he's the guy that's leading them. He don't know what he's doing either. He only has one view on how things should go, and it's not working. He rides off the success of other people. With Wonder Woman, it was Zack Snyder who wrote the story. With Aquaman, James Wan and Zack Snyder was working on something grand, and then he was able to tweak it. But he really ain't got no original ideas. He ain't got nothing. He really don't. That's why he can't get a single movie to do well. And he had to copy things that Zack Snyder was doing already. All right, so Warner Brothers, if you want to see the DC brand just go, and that's it, stick with those guys. They'll charm you. They'll talk to execs. They'll try and charm you. They'll give you all kinds of illusions of grandeur. But they're full of shit. At the end of the day, they don't know what they're doing. Okay? So, because guess what? One of them, what is he? He's a comic book writer. And the other guy, he is a filmmaker that has been a one-hit wonder. He's worked under Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige's a brilliant guy. Took notes from Kevin Feige and stuff. Kevin Feige gave him certain leeways. And he made his movies and he was successful with his movies. But to be honest with you, he ain't jack shit otherwise. He ain't directed nothing that we could say is worth talking about. All right? He's written for certain movies and stuff. But he ain't done nothing. He's just like Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon is a one-hit wonder. He did the Avengers. He did Buffy the Vampire Slayer on TV. But that's about it. You know what I mean? These guys didn't put movie after movie after movie. Zack Snyder's way more advanced than those guys because he actually did Dawn of the Dead. He did 300, which was successful. Then he did Man of Steel, which was successful. BVS, which was successful. That, I think, is his whole... Oh, no. And then Army of the Dead recently, which also went into theaters and was successful for the time that it went into theaters. So you have those... He has a archive of movies. And you could say, okay, well, the Snyderverse trilogy or the Justice League trilogy or the Zack Snyder Justice League trilogy, those two movies, those two DC movies, you could say, well, that's what he's known for. Fine. But he's also known for 300. He's also known for Dawn of the Dead. He's also known for the Army of the Dead, which is the follow-up of the Dawn of the Dead, kind of like, and he's forming an Army verse. Now he's going about to do Rebel Moon verse. And we'll see how that pans out with him. But he's had success with multiple different franchises and movies. You can't say that for James Gunn. And he ain't a world builder. Kevin Feige built the world. You know what I mean? Joss Whedon started it. Kevin Feige built the world. So when you talk about guys who actually have an idea of comic, and then Zack Snyder's a huge comic book fan. And he read all kind of comic books, not just DC and Marvel. He read all kind of comic books. You know what I mean? So that's the difference between, a Zack Snyder and a James Gunn or a Jeff Johns. Because Jeff Johns, he understands to write comics. I'm not saying he's the best comic book writer out there. He all right. He knows how to write comics. That's it. Okay? He's not really a movie writer. Okay? He's not really a movie director. He's not a movie, but he wants to do all those roles, which he should not have. And quite frankly, if I just want to let everybody know, this guy been changing narrators over and over. First, he was saying the universe doesn't need to be connected, and you could see him trying to disconnect what Zack was doing. And now he's talking about he's with James Gunn talking about a connected universe, but he don't know how to connect the universe together. So this is the kind of guy we dealing with. A guy who has been repeatedly, time and time again, hurting DC. Right? The CW no longer exists because of this guy. Okay? So Warner Bros. Has been losing a lot of money, hemorrhaging a lot of money because of this guy. All right? This guy will give you a nice flop. You want a flop? Since Green Lantern days, dude be just flopping movies. Okay? His first success was with Wonder Woman, and that's because Zack Snyder was involved in the story. He didn't write the script. He didn't write Wonder Woman. Okay? He was able to tweak and make adjustments. And some of the adjustments he made was what people critique as the worst part of the movie. All right? So this guy who's trying to reserve Green Lanterns and all this bullshit, listen, man. Abdi and DeLuca, you guys are the head. You are James Gunn and Peter Safran's boss. I don't have too much to say about Peter Safran because that dude's a producer. That's what he do. He produced movies, right? But James Gunn, the creative arm of it, get him out of there. All right, if you want to get rid of Peter Safran with him, fine. It doesn't matter because, Peter Safran been producing movies, and his last 4 movies have been flops, right? We had the Suicide Squad, Shazam 2, Blue Beetle. Oh yeah, Aquaman hasn't flopped yet, so we can't say his last 4 movies. And the guy was successful before that. All right, the guy was doing some good stuff. Safran was on a roll, and then is what it is. So James Gunn, get him out of there. Just get him. Just get him out of there. All right. Get rid of those guys who bring out fun movies and stuff. We don't want that. We don't want that kind of fun. We have fun watching more mature themes, enjoying, and we like to rewatch movies. So like, say, Zack Snyder's Justice League, we love to rewatch that shit, right? We like to rewatch BVS. We like to rewatch Man of Steel. If you put Man of Steel out in theaters, guess what? We'll come and see it. You put BVS out in theaters, especially the Ultimate Cut, we go see it. You put Zack Snyder's Justice League out in theaters, we'll go see it. Because I'm guaranteeing you the difference between Snyder fans and all them other fandoms out there is we show up. We don't talk, we show up. All right? You guarantee you put Zack Snyder's Justice League into theaters, we'll be there. Right? That's the difference between us and everybody else you have out there that be chittering and chattering. So you have to be able to see who's the people that bring the money to you. And clearly, we haven't been going into the theaters to watch your stuff because we ain't interested in that. We told you what we were interested in, and for you to continue it, that's on you. And don't tell me about no Jeff Johns. Fire his ass. Get him out of there. There are people better than him that can do a better job. Fire him. Fire James Gunn. Fire him or put him to the side. Okay? Fire him. Like, you have to take drastic measures. Just like how you just cancel Batgirl, you gotta fire him. Because all you're gonna get is poor quality stuff. Just fire the guy. Cancel him. Get rid of him. And let's get back Constantine 2. We want Constantine 2. We want rehire Henry Cavill and bring in Superman. We need a Superman movie, man. We need a Superman solo movie. We haven't had a Superman solo movie in a long time. Why y'all guys, listen, man, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, man, bring that dude back. We got a Black Adam. You know what I mean? You guys got to understand, we're not interested in fun, in funny movies. We had enough of it. We need something different. And a connected universe is what Zack Snyder was trying to do. He was trying to have this connected universe. Bring back Patty Jenkins. What is wrong with y'all guys? It's a great director. She just needs, to get the action down pat and get somebody to flush out the story a little bit better. She had a good idea. She had great intentions. It could have been a Wonder Woman 2017 movie. It's just that she didn't have the right people around her. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. There still can be healing. To see Ray Fisher, a cyborg, on the screen, for all those kids who are suffering with depression, some of them suicidal, to see him saying, I'm not broken and I'm not alone. The impact that will have. This month is Suicide Prevention Month. And to have a message like that could reach so many lives and save lives, you got to put this movie into cinemas. You have to. Oh, there's another thing I want to say. I was listening to a certain gentleman online and several other people, and they were saying that, everybody feels today that they got a say in something, but you know what? You don't really count. Y'all say don't count. That's not true. That's a lie. There are people who comb the whole internet, and they be paying attention to everything that's be going on, whether it's Warner Brothers or whoever. And these corporations, they do pay attention to what you're saying. And how we know this, we got the Snyder Cut. So if what I'm saying, and I know I was one of the solo people out here pushing for BVS, but we coalesced, and now I know like-minded people like myself. And we talked about, and we defended that movie fiercely. And I'm talking about the theatrical cut. I'm not even talking about the ultimate cut. And the theatrical cut is still a damn good movie. And because it hooked me. I watched that movie 14 times. Theatrical. So a number of us went out and we pushed and we fought for BVS. It took years. But it's nice to see this thing come to fruition. And I'm not saying that I am the be all and end all. I don't care about myself. Just like, what's her name? The Chinese girl that came on the scene and was leading us for a minute. She didn't care about herself like that. She just wanted to see this thing come to fruition. And I'm just so happy that we are at this point where this thing is still could come to fruition. Like, for instance, they're threatening the Snyderverse will end, or the DCEU will end, whatever. And I'm just laughing. How many times have we heard that? DC is dead without the Snyderverse. Period. And we know this now. This is old information. Right? So you either restart the Snyderverse and you can do it. There's an opportunity for it to happen. Or you can just let DC die. A natural death. In which case, doesn't even matter what James Gunn does, because there will be no DC. It don't really matter. But at the end of the day, we are pushing to restore the Snyderverse because we think there's so much story and there's so much interest and there's so much good that could come out of it. And again, for those people who do not know what the Snyderverse is, it is the first four original movies. So Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman considered part of the Snyderverse. Of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League is part of the Snyderverse as well. And yeah, y'all will say, well, Zack Snyder's movies is the Snyderverse. No, no, no. It's those movies. The setting and everything is the same. Now, Air Cut is really the real thing that we need to see. So you can argue maybe that the Suicide Squad is not. Now, Aquaman is one of the original people who, with Ben Affleck, who was supposed to be under Zack Snyder. He changed hands and he was under Jeff Johns and John Berg. And so that movie went away from what it was supposed to be. So some people argue that Aquaman is part of the Snyderverse, some say it's not. But ultimately, in the end, it doesn't have the same tonality as the Snyderverse at all. It doesn't even have the look of the Snyderverse. So I would prefer to say it's not a part of the Snyderverse. And James Wan was very successful at doing that and was under Jeff Johns and John Berg, and good for them. It did rely heavily on Zack Snyder's Restore the Snyderverse campaign at the time. Release the Snyder Cut campaign at the time. But nonetheless, and Jason Momoa leaned heavily on that, but nonetheless, it had tremendous success. And so because of this, Jeff Johns thought that they could replicate that success. But no, you tricked people into supporting a movie that was not a Snyderverse movie. We know this now. We've seen the concept art. We've heard all of the reveals and what happened behind the scenes. So you can't fool us again. So there's always these smoke and mirrors, these lies, these lies, these lies, these lies. The only people right now that seem to be people who actually in Warner Brothers Pictures seem to be level-headed, seem possibly to be people who we could look at and say, maybe these people will restore the Snyderverse. Executives would support such a thing, having seen James Gunn's track record and the excuses he was making. He's not accepting his responsibility for nothing. He's just making excuses. So ultimately, in the end, they'll either give him a shot so that he can blow his load and we get a flop again, because that's just exactly what's going to happen. Theatrically, whatever he does in TV, nobody gives a damn, because TV, you don't make a bulk of money off of TV or off of streaming. That's not the major money source. And quite frankly, Max is nowhere near the size and magnitude of Netflix or even Disney streaming service right now. They're nowhere, they're not in the ballpark. So it's like, they had some pretty good content on Max, but I don't know how it's doing now. And quite frankly, couldn't care less, because the stuff that they were supposed to do, the movement that you think is naturally something they would pursue, they haven't done. So the interest in Warner Brothers Pictures and the interest in them pushing forward with the Snyderverse and with Zack Snyder's Justice League in theaters is still not happening. And that is sad, because this is something that if you put it in theaters, it's guaranteed to make you money, because there's just this huge fan base waiting for it. And they don't care that they've seen it before, because it's rewatchable. I mean, how could you lose with that? You can't. That's a win-win-win-win situation. And they won't pull the trigger because some asshole named Jeff Johns is saying, no, don't do that. We're trying to start a new, and this nonsense about, this thing may end in a cliffhanger, so that means we can't continue our universe and we can't do what we want to do. Well, how are you going to do anything if your movies keep on flopping? You're not making income. So a flop movie is better than a movie that says it has a cliffhanger at the end and people are expecting more. That's bad. I mean, I try to think about the reasoning that these people have, and none of it makes any sense to me. If people want to see a follow-up, that means that's more money for you. That's the first thing. It doesn't mean you have to end whatever you're doing. Second of all, if you want to continue doing what you're doing, fine. Now, if you're worried that what you're going to continue doing is not as exciting or getting people as excited as what is there, then guess what? You piggyback off of it. You ride the wave. I mean, this is just common sense. You ride the freaking wave. What do you think Marvel was doing? DC was the hottest thing out there with BVS. When DC came out, so Captain America rode the wave of BVS. You ride the wave of BVS. Yes, they did, the espionage, and this clown called Jeff Johns was leaking information. We know that. But what we're saying is they were smart enough to ride that wave. Their movie wasn't as good as BVS. We all know this. But they were able to ride that wave off of BVS and make more money and do even better performing in the theater than BVS. So, I mean, it's not rocket science. You let the thing do what it do. The real thing, not what you pivoted away from and then claim that it's the same thing as that and this universe is going down the tubes. No, don't do that. Don't say that's Zack Snyder's. This is not Zack Snyder's universe. That's not what Zack Snyder's vision was. So you can't come and say, oh, well, these flops are a result of Zack Snyder's stuff. And no. Don't put no credit on that because Zack Snyder don't make them kind of movies. And the atmosphere and the background and everything wasn't what Zack Snyder does. Now, Wonder Woman definitely was a Snyderverse movie because if you look at the environment, you could see the foundation of it came from the Snyderverse. Right? The second Wonder Woman movie was not a Snyderverse movie at all. It wasn't. Okay? And you could tell the environment, the tone, everything about it. Even if the tone is different, you have to have at least the environment. How the world works. Once you start to reinvent how the world works, now you're not linked to what you originally did. So the first Wonder Woman movie is different to the second one. It's profoundly different. Right? In every single kind of way. The look, the appearance, everything. So what I'm trying to say is you can't link that to the Snyderverse when it's nothing like the Snyderverse. Nothing like it. You can't say that's the Snyderverse. Right? Shazam is not from the Snyderverse. Even though it tries to allude to it, there's no connectivity in terms of the look, the feel, the movement, the dynamics. It's not the same. If you keep that consistent, now that's the one thing they did with Marvel. James Gunn was able to do something different because he was dealing with the outer space thing. But once they were grounded on, there were rules. In a Marvel movie, there are rules. On Earth, the scenery, the place, the way how that universe works that way. And that's what's inconsistent. When they did that pivot, it was very inconsistent. And to this day, they didn't keep the kind of tone, especially visually. You have to keep a certain tone. You can have humor, you can have all those things, but you have to fit into that world. It didn't feel like the same world. It felt like a Frankenstein. It felt like the Joss Whedon's Justice League movie. It felt like we went from a grounded world into some kind of superfluous kind of, Looney Tunes. We started going to Looney Tune land and Looney Tune world. And the look and the feel of it was just totally different. You can't take those movies, all these flops here. You can't link that to anything that the earlier movies are. They don't look like that. They don't feel like that. And Zack Snyder's Justice League fit into that world. It looks and feels like that kind of world. But the stuff that you did after doesn't look and feel like that kind of world. It just doesn't. I mean, and that is the truth. So I'm going to wrap it up right here. I took about an hour talking about these things. I'll catch you guys later. I am Christ I Am Disciple. And I didn't go into the article. You guys can read the article yourself, but I just covered the top. And now there's a lot to that article. It talks about various things. I kind of sprinkled on it, but suffice it to say, lies, and more lies. People be lying out here, right? So Warner Brothers acted on a lie, and they pivoted for no reason at all. Critical reviews, we've talked about this many times. Critical reviews don't mean nothing. I'm going to mention a couple movies that were critically panned in their time. And the reason I'm going to do this is because A lot of people out here do not understand nor appreciate that a movie is told from its story. So fundamental things you have to understand. If you don't understand that, you always be at a loss. Always be at a loss. Okay, here are some movies that were critically panned. It's a Wonderful Life was critically panned. The Wizard of Oz was critically panned. Star Wars was critically panned. Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, critically panned. Groundhog Day, which is now a national treasure in the Library of Congress, was critically panned. Right? There's more. The Shining, which is now a legendary horror film, was critically panned. What am I saying? I'm saying Metropolis was critically panned. Godzilla, the first Godzilla movie, was critically panned. What am I saying to you guys? Which is a tremendous franchise now, right? Star Wars, Godzilla, Alien, the movie, which is a tremendous franchise now, critically panned. You have to understand, critics, whether they are paid to play or not, they work on certain rules and they do not understand what a good movie really is because they follow certain rules for what a good movie really is. And even if they're not even following the rules, because like some of these critics, and they're just paid to play, and people just focus on them alone, the critics, they will find themselves missing out on some great storytelling. There's a couple other movies that were Academy Award winning movies, which were critically panned. And every single time people try to tell people, that's why I said, I put the two shorts out there. You like what you like. Don't worry about what critics say. Don't worry about what majority of people say. If you like this type of movie, you like this type of movie, and that's that. For you, it's a good movie. And people like things. Remember, liking things is a subjective thing. I could like, for example, peanut butter and salt, right? Peanut butter and salt on a pickle. Whereas somebody else may like, just love tomatoes in milk. And you're like, bleh. I'm like, oh. People have different tastes in things. And so you can't objectify something that's subjective. As a result of that, if a majority of people like a certain movie, like people, they talked about Transformers being the worst movie ever, Michael Bay, blah, how to make so much money, blah, blah, blah. Well, listen, truth be told, if people like Transformers and like going to see Transformers, why are you such a sourpuss about it? You may not like it because you don't think it has much story or much development or whatever. But if people like Transformers and it's making money and people want to go see it, then it's a good movie. It's not a bad movie. You can't say a movie's bad and people are paying to see it and they're paying to see the sequel and they're paying to see the next sequel. It can't be bad because people like it. And if people like it, it's not bad. So, critics, they have too much ego. You have to understand movies and all things in life are subjective. If you like something or you don't like something, it's subjective. You could like it or you could not like it. You don't have to like it. And you can't force people to like things. And you can't force them not to like things. So I've heard a critic say, with BVS, you should never go in the cinema and you must tell everybody not to go see this movie. I'm like, shh. Are you like a clown or something? You may not like the movie. for whatever reason. But if people want to go see the movie, they're going to go damn well go see the movie. And that's what people need to understand. You don't hinge yourself on what somebody else says about something. Don't put so much weight into what somebody else says about something. If you yourself want to know, then go see. And you're not going to die because you go see a movie. Now, it's different, like if somebody tells you don't go in that section of the place because, you might get shot. You might want to listen to that because you might want to live. You don't want to go find out that for yourself. But if it's not dangerous, like going to see a movie, then you go see the movie. Shoot, it's a movie. And listen, another thing I want to tell people out there. I've seen, these Gunts and the Blue Beetle Battalion people and all these people trying to make other people feel bad for not going to see a movie. Listen, you can't make nobody feel bad because movie going is a subjective experience. In other words, if I don't want to go see, there are movies like some people try to sell the movie to you. Like, they're like, hey, you need to see this movie. No, this is a movie you got to see. And you'd be like, I'm not really that interested in it, though. And they're like, no, you need to go see. No, if you're not interested, you're not interested. Right? If it's not a movie you're interested in seeing, then it's not a movie you're interested in seeing. End of story. You're not like everybody else. Everybody has their own taste based on experiences, whatever, in movies. And it's cool. But what Warner Brothers needs to realize is when you're trying to force people to watch a certain kind of movie and they're telling you, I'm not interested in that, and you keep on pushing it in front of their face like, no, you got to have this kind of movie, which I know Jeff Johns is the guy behind that. If you're trying to force feed something to people, they're going to get very repulsed by you, and they're not even going to have anything to do with you. And really, I've heard so many people now saying they want nothing to do with DC, and they're tired of DC and the nonsense that's going on in DC. That's the bottom line. So, if you want to spark some interest in DC, the movie to spark it, which actually, weirdly enough, is universally accepted as a good movie by critics and the audience that has seen it, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And the thing about Zack Snyder's Justice League is, if you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League and then you go back and watch BVS or Man of Steel, now you get it because the whole thing flows in a beautiful way, and people who are now watching it on YouTube, a lot of people are watching it on YouTube, and they're doing watch-alongs, have said that these three movies are great. They've said it. And the truth be told, they're great, and more people are coming to like them, and more people are coming to enjoy them, because, and some of them are Marvel fans, because they actually have value in them. So if you get more people on board and they're liking the movies and everything, why don't you put it into theaters? Put it into cinemas. Now in the theater, you're not going to see it. Cinemas, you're not going to see the full movie because parts of it will be cut off. But if you go into IMAX, which is why I emphasize IMAX, you see the whole thing. And I believe that there's a possibility of that happening with Abdi and DeLuca in charge. I really do believe there's a possibility of that happening because they are rational-minded people, and just what I just spelled out there is probably something that they're actually thinking at the present point in time, right? But how I know they're rational-minded people, when they canceled Batgirl, which sent ripples through Hollywood, I said yes, because I knew Batgirl was going to be a crappy movie. I thought to myself, yes, somebody's thinking in a sensible way. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't cancel The Flash, they couldn't cancel Blue Beetle, and they couldn't cancel Aquaman, and they couldn't cancel Shazam 2. Right? And because there was a change in administration, those movies couldn't get the attention that like Black Adam had, unfortunately, which probably might have helped them to actually do even better than Black Adam did, which is sad. But I do think Abdi and DeLuca, even though they may be overvoted, whatever they want to do, I think they think along the same lines that we do. And if there's any hope, it's in those two people pulling it off because they are successful at Warner Brother Pictures. The movies that they put out this year have been successful. The only thing that has not been working is DC, and I say reshuffle DC. I say either you get rid of the people who are there, you clean house with DC, and you work with um, either you just go directly to Abdi and DeLuca, or you work with somebody else like Greg Silverman, maybe bring back John Berg and Greg Silverman and let them do their thing. Because I think John Berg is a decent human being. He apologized to Ray Fisher. He's a decent guy. And Greg Silverman, I mean, very productive guy. I mean, the guy had hits after hit after hit after hit. And he knew talent. He knew what he was dealing with. He had trust and confidence in his directors. This guy's really good. So maybe they replace with Greg Silverman and just keep it rolling. You know what I mean? Because that's what Greg does. Greg does good work, and he's going to put out he's got like 2 or 3 projects that are coming up very soon. I'll let you guys know about that. But that's what I got for you guys. I wish you guys a good night. I might go out and get something to eat, or I might just make something to eat. I don't know. I'm kind of undecided as what I want to do next. But I'll catch you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple, and I share this topic. You guys can talk about it, discuss it, restore the Snyderverse. I'm still with that. I'm not going to change my mind. That's the way to go for DC. It's not trying to join up with Marvel. Yes, as my boy, whatever his name is, he said DC should have kept continuity between their movies. Even if the directors have freedom with certain things, should have continuity so one thing flowed into another. Jeff Johns destroyed that idea. He tried to break up a continuity as much as he could because his ego wouldn't allow him to just allow things to flow beautifully. So that is what Jeff Johns done. He's actually frustrated the process, and you got to get rid of him. He has to go. He has to leave. If you want DC to survive Abdi and DeLuca, you better tell David Zaslav. He need to understand this because he's not understanding. Those guys are not guys. I don't care what Alan Horn says. Those are not guys to handle your DC brand. They're just not. They're not going to give you no winning formula. Jeff Johns has a history of destroying stuff. CW never made money for Warner Brothers. It's gone now. DC Online never made money for Warner Brothers. Gone. You got some of the programs that have gone onto Max. And Max is going to go downhill if Jeff Johns keeps on having his way. Y'all got to get rid of this dude. Get rid of him. Flush him out. I don't care if he was in comics or whatever. Just get him out of there. Don't have him writing any movies. Get somebody else. Because it really is going to work in your favor when you flush that guy out. He is the problem with DC. And the people he's brought in, Joss Whedon, James Gunn, he's brought in these people. He's disgusting. Get rid of him. Flush him out. And let Casey Bloys go with him. I know he's Max content creator, but get rid of him. Get Casey Bloys too. Get rid of them all. Flush them out. I'm sorry, that's just the way how I feel about it. Anyway, enough talk about that. I'm going to catch you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple. You guys have a good night. Remember, I'm going to read it again for you guys. You guys can always reach the replay at 1.5x, by the way. The time is coming when everything will be revealed. All that's in secret will be made public. Whatever you have said in the dark will be held in the light, and what you have whispered behind closed doors will be shouted from the housetops for all to hear. Let me say something, because it's about time I said something as a Christian believer. A lot of people think they got away with a lot of things in this life. They thought they could wheel and deal and cheat and lie and steal and do all kinds of wickedness in the cover. But like Jesus said, there's going to come a day of reckoning, where all your dirty clothing, all the nasty things you did and you never apologized for, you never asked forgiveness for, it's gonna come to light. And you're gonna have to answer for those things. Every man. And I truly believe that. Today was a day of reckoning where we learned that the industry is once again very dirty. Hollywood has shown it is dirty. Right? Wheeling and dealing as usual. But someday you're going to have to answer for whatever you did. If you didn't go straight, you're going to have to answer for it. Each and every one of us. So let every man check his heart, check his conscience, and make the adjustments accordingly. I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace.